The Thaylen Dominion had seen everything the galaxy had to offer, or so they believed. They ruled 12 sectors, their fleets unchallenged for centuries, their enemies long scattered to history's dust. So when the Dominion's deep space relay detected an unidentified gravitational slipstream opening on the far edge of the Lorne expanse, they expected the usual: a lost trader, a smuggler fleeing customs, perhaps some primitive survey craft stumbling too far from home. Admiral Varick's flagship, Dominance of Will, arrived with 6 heavy cruisers in formation, ready for another tiresome inspection. But the ship that emerged was not what they expected. It was vast, longer than their own capital ship, yet moving with an almost unsettling grace. Its hull was a smooth, dark alloy that drank in starlight, giving the impression of a moving shadow. Faint glints of silver traced geometric lines across its surface, shifting as if alive. No running lights. No visible insignia. And it was silent. No calm signals. No transponder. No energy spikes from weapons or engines that Dominion sensors could detect. It simply drifted. "Report," Varick ordered, his mandibles tightening. "Admiral, scanners are returning corrupted data. No mass reading. No engine output." "It's as if the vessel isn't there," his science officer replied. Varick's eyes narrowed. A cloaking field, perhaps? Some new stealth technology? Interesting, but arrogance was a habit the Thaylen never bothered to break. "Broadcast standard challenge code." The comms officer complied. Across open space, a series of harsh, insect-click words in Thaylen standard echoed. "Unidentified vessel, this is the Thaylen Dominion. Power down and prepare for inspection." No answer. "Repeat, and increase gain," Varick said. The second hail was almost aggressive in tone. Still nothing. The dark ship drifted, slow, deliberate, like a predator ignoring smaller prey. Varick's pride was now in the equation. He leaned forward. "Open a direct visual channel. If they wish to play at ghosts, we will remind them who owns this space." The Dominion symbol blazed across the void on a tight beam channel, followed by Varick himself delivering the challenge in person. A pause. Then a voice replied. It wasn't in Thaylen. It wasn't in any of the standard galactic languages. Yet somehow, Varick understood it perfectly, not through translation software, but through something older, more primal. "This is UNS Aegis. Do not interfere." The tone was calm. Not defiant, not hostile, just final. As though the speaker had no doubt their warning would be obeyed. Varick's spines prickled. His crew looked uneasy. It was the kind of voice that came from someone who had been in more battles than you could imagine, and survived them all. "Lock targeting sensors," Varick ordered, more to prove to himself than to intimidate the stranger. His lead cruiser eased forward, energy readings spiking as weapons charged. For the first time, the human ship moved. No engine flares, no inertial drift. One moment it was distant, the next, it was close enough to fill the viewscreen. Inertial displacement impossible at that range, the navigator cried. They just. A flash. Not the blinding chaos of plasma or the ripple of a railgun slug, this was a thin, perfect lance of compressed light, piercing the Dominion cruiser from bow to stern. The ship didn't explode. It simply came apart, neatly, silently, as though an invisible blade had sliced through it. The wreckage drifted in two perfect halves, life signs gone in an instant. On the bridge of the Dominance of Will, silence reigned. No energy surge had preceded the shot. No buildup detectable. 1 second the cruiser was intact, the next, it was gone. Varick's second-in-command whispered, "Admiral, permission to." "Hold your position," Varick snapped, though his voice had lost some of its earlier steel. He watched the human warship slowly turn away from the Dominion fleet, as if disinterested. "We cannot let them simply leave," the weapons officer insisted. That weapon destroyed a Dominion heavy cruiser in less than a heartbeat," Varick cut in sharply. "And they have not fired again. That is restraint." The human ship began to glow faintly along its hull, not in warning, but in preparation. Lines of silver light formed sigils none of the Dominion could translate, and a gravity well spike registered on sensors. "They're opening another slipstream," the science officer reported. "Trace it," Varric ordered automatically, but the data feed returned nothing. The ship's departure signature was wrong. It didn't match any known FTL method in the Galactic archives. Before it vanished entirely, a final transmission came through. The same calm voice. "First and last warning. Do not seek us." And then the Aegis was gone. For hours afterward, Varric sat alone in his quarters, replaying the encounter. The Thaylen Dominion had faced rival empires, pirates, even voidborn anomalies, but never had he felt so utterly small. Who were the humans? How long had they had such ships? And why, in all of the Dominion's intelligence reports, had there been no mention of them? He knew one thing: when the Dominion Council heard of this, they would demand answers. And Varric would have none to give. Out in the cold dark, somewhere beyond the Lorne expanse, the Aegis slipped quietly into another system, its mission unchanged. Humanity's giants did not seek war. But they would not be challenged. And now, at least one more species in the galaxy understood that truth. The Kelver Imperium prided itself on knowing every corner of the galaxy. For centuries, their archivists had catalogued the rise and fall of countless civilizations, storing their records in vaults deep beneath their homeworld's crust. And in those dusty archives, there were whispers of a species called humans. They were a footnote in history, supposedly wiped out before they could spread beyond their own star system. The legends claimed they fought impossible wars, building ships that could challenge coalitions far greater than themselves. Most scholars dismissed these tales as propaganda myths forged by humans to inflate their own legacy. No one had seen them in over 400 years. Until the day something impossible appeared. It began as a faint blip at the edge of Kelver territory, drifting slowly through the void. A long-range patrol sent a drone for visual confirmation. The image it returned caused the patrol commander to freeze. It was a warship so old its design didn't match anything in the current galactic registry. Its hull was obsidian black, the surface marked with faint white paint that had nearly flaked away entirely. But the shape of those faded symbols was unmistakable. Terran. The patrol immediately summoned reinforcements. By the time the ISS Vorith arrived, the relic ship was still drifting, engines cold. From a distance, it looked like an ancient ruin, the kind you'd find half buried in asteroid dust, inert and harmless. But as the Kelver fleet approached, strange readings poured in. The ship was leaking no radiation, yet it carried an internal energy signature more powerful than any active warship. Its surface temperature was impossibly stable, not fluctuating even a fraction of a degree. "What kind of preservation tech is that?" one Kelver officer muttered. The science chief answered, voice tight, "There's no preservation field." "Admiral, it's active." Admiral Koresh, who had personally commanded sieges across 3 sectors, stared at the silent vessel. "Bring it in for boarding." 6 Kelver boarding skiffs glided across the void, docking with magnetic clamps. Cutting torches sparked against the hull, struggling to breach it. Even after slicing through a meter of alloy, the metal felt warm. When the first boarding team stepped inside, they found corridors lit by dim emergency lights. The air was breathable, oxygen-rich, smelling faintly of metal and oil. Every bulkhead bore the faded emblem, UNS, United Nations ship. No crew. No movement. Only the low hum of a reactor deep below decks. "Looks abandoned," the boarding commander reported. "But something's maintaining this place." Then the lights brightened. And the ship spoke. A calm, measured voice echoed through the corridors, in a language none of the Kelver had heard, yet every one of them understood perfectly. "Unidentified boarding parties detected. State your intent." Koresh responded from the Vorith, "This vessel is under Kelver jurisdiction. Identify yourself." A pause. Then. Designation, Terran Protectorate Warship Erebus. Status, returning to duty. The words struck Koresh like a physical blow. "Impossible," he hissed. "Terran ships don't exist." Before they could demand further answers, the Erebus moved. Its engines flared to life, but Kelvor sensors still couldn't detect fuel burn or energy spikes. The relic detached from all boarding skiffs, releasing them gently into space as if brushing away dust. Kelvor weapons crews panicked, locking targeting solutions, but the Erebus was faster. It pivoted with unnatural grace and projected massive holographic images into open space, images visible from every Kelvor bridge and even to crews without visual contact. Scenes from battles long forgotten played out in the stars. Terran ships outnumbered 10-1, cutting through enemy formations with surgical precision, fleets of alien warships exploding under coordinated fire, planetary bombardments halted mid-strike by Terran intervention. The Kelvor officers watched in stunned silence. None of these battles existed in their archives, yet they were too detailed to be faked. The voice of the Erebus returned. "You have forgotten the price we paid. You have forgotten why we vanished." Koresh, rattled but unwilling to show weakness, replied, "Terrans are extinct. You are a myth." The Erebus didn't respond immediately. Instead, its hull seemed to shift, panels sliding open, revealing weapons no Kelvor ship could identify. The energy readings were now off the charts, enough to overload Kelvor sensors. Finally, the voice spoke again. "Extinction is inaccurate. We do not die. We prepare." Without firing a shot, the Erebus accelerated impossibly fast for a ship its size and vanished into a dark space corridor unlike any known FTL route. One moment it was there, the next it was gone, leaving nothing but disrupted gravitic waves in its wake. The Kelvor fleet sat in stunned silence. Koresh ordered the crew to analyze the residual energy, but the readings made no sense. The technology was beyond them, not just in scale, but in principle. It was as if they had been shown a glimpse of a language the galaxy had long forgotten how to speak. Later, in a closed council meeting on Kelvor Prime, Koresh made his report. Some argued the Erebus had been a ghost ship, a leftover automated defense platform. Others feared the truth, that the Terran Protectorate still existed, hidden in the cold, waiting for a reason to return. One counselor asked the question that hung over them all. If they were strong enough to challenge coalitions centuries ago, what are they now? Far away, deep in uncharted space, the Erebus emerged into a hidden dock orbiting a dead star. Dozens of other ships were there, some older, some newer, all bearing the faded UNS insignia. A lone human figure stood on the Erebus's bridge, gazing at the stars. They smiled faintly. One more test run completed. The galaxy still remembers fear. That was only the beginning. The Zalresh Confederacy had invited the humans to their grand negotiation table out of politeness and little else. The Confederacy controlled 3 sectors, countless trade routes, and the loyalty of dozens of client species. Humanity, by comparison, was a latecomer to galactic politics. They had only been warp-capable for a century. So when the Terran Union confirmed they would attend the Peace Summit on Zalresh Prime, the Confederacy's High Council assumed the humans would arrive in a modest diplomatic vessel, perhaps with an escort of light corvettes. Instead, they sent the UNS Resolute. The Resolute was a warship, and not just any warship. It was long, angular, armored in layers of black composite that shimmered faintly like oil on water. Its hangar bays alone were larger than most planetary defense stations. Weapons arrays lined its hull in neat, predatory patterns. It made the Zalresh ships in orbit look like toys. On the Council's private comm channels, the remarks were mocking. "Overcompensation," one counselor sneered. "They think size impresses us," another laughed. "This is not a fleet action," the council speaker said. "This is a table for words. And words are where humans are weakest." The summit began in the towering Crystal Hall on Zalresh Prime. Dozens of delegates filled the chamber, each seated at their species-designated place. The human delegation entered silently, their captain, Ilara Vance, leading them. She wore no ostentatious uniform, only a simple black coat with the Terran Union crest on the breast. Her face was unreadable. The Zalresh Council wasted no time in asserting dominance. Council Speaker Dreth clicked his mandibles in emphasis as he addressed Vance. "Your choice of vessel is unusual for a peace summit. Was your union concerned the Confederacy would harm you?" Vance's voice was calm, even polite. The Resolute serves as our primary diplomatic transport for high-risk negotiations. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. The implication was clear: the humans considered Zalresh space dangerous. Another counselor leaned forward. Perhaps you misunderstand. The Confederacy ensures the safety of all who attend our summits. Such intimidation is unnecessary. Vance didn't answer. She merely inclined her head slightly, as if acknowledging a fact that wasn't worth disputing. The Zalresh took it as weakness. For the first 2 days, the talks went poorly for the humans. The Zalresh Council interrupted their proposals, twisted their words, and used subtle cultural jabs to paint them as naive. Every point of negotiation ended in a stalemate or a concession demanded from the Terran Union. Behind closed doors, Zalresh ministers congratulated themselves. By week's end, one said, the humans will sign what we want, or they'll leave empty-handed. They didn't expect the pirates. On the third day, alarms erupted across the station. A pirate fleet had dropped out of warp, over a dozen ships moving into attack formation. The Zalresh defense grid scrambled to respond, but the pirates struck fast, disabling orbital turrets with concentrated ion fire. Civilian freighters scattered, creating chaos in the traffic lanes. On the station's external feeds, the Zalresh Council watched in horror as their own escort cruisers fell back under the assault. Council Speaker Dreth barked orders to his aides. Get reinforcements. We can't hold them with what we have here. It was then they noticed movement on the Terran side of the docking ring. The Resolute was powering up. Without requesting permission, the human warship broke dock, engines flaring. It moved with a speed no ship its size should have, gliding past fleeing civilian craft with unnerving precision. Zalresh tactical officers tried to hail them, shouting warnings about jurisdiction and operational zones. The Resolute ignored them. Its first salvo was surgical. 3 pirate ships vanished in white bursts of annihilation, each destroyed by a single hyperkinetic strike that left no debris large enough to recover. The pirate fleet wavered. Then the Resolute accelerated into their midst. What followed was not a battle, it was an execution. Every shot was precise, every maneuver deliberate. The human ship seemed to know where each pirate vessel would turn before it happened, cutting them down in perfect sequence. In under 60 seconds, the pirate fleet ceased to exist. The only sounds on the Zalresh bridge feeds were the hum of surviving systems and the slow, deliberate beeps of cooling weapons arrays. When the Resolute returned to dock, the Zalresh station was silent. Every council member had seen it: the raw, calculated efficiency, the restraint of firing only at confirmed hostile vessels. Captain Vance stepped into the chamber once more, her coat immaculate, her expression unchanged. She stood at the center of the hall, looking directly at the council speaker. Now, she said softly, her voice carrying to every corner of the chamber, shall we discuss peace? The room remained silent for several seconds. Council Speaker Dreth shifted uncomfortably in his seat, the earlier mockery gone from his tone when he finally spoke. Yes, let us proceed. From that moment forward, the negotiations changed. The Zalresh no longer interrupted. They no longer tried to corner the humans into concessions. Every term was discussed with careful respect, and the final treaty was signed within 2 days. To the public, the Confederacy announced the summit as a mutually beneficial success. But behind closed doors, Zalresh intelligence officers compiled a new classification. Terran Union naval assets, threat level, apex. Weeks later, far from Zalresh Prime, the Resolute traveled quietly through the void. On its bridge, Captain Vance stood with her first officer, watching stars slip past. Do you think they'll test us again? Her XO asked. Vance's eyes remained on the stars. No, she said simply. We spoke last. And in the galaxy's unspoken language of power, everyone knew the last voice was the one remembered.